Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, how you doing? Talk radio without the static. Not a bad little turn of phrase. God, let me wheeze. Let me wheeze in your ears. We made it to Friday, guys. I consider that a signature achievement personally. And the world's still here. And as far as we know. I'm not sure where to start. I think I say that every time. Let me start with a quote from Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, I'm ashamed to say, from my home state of Wisconsin. And he's now, of course, out there selling this noxious thing, passing for a health care bill. And here is his quote. Take this in, okay? Especially considering that this is the guy who the Republicans put out there as their genius. This is the guy who's he's a real policy wonk. I mean, he knows detail. He is just, his head is a finely tuned machine. It's going all the time. God, he's amazing. We defer to his genius. Here's what the genius said. The whole idea of Obamacare is the people who are healthy pay. They pay for the sick. It's not working. And that's why it's in a death spiral. You read that and you think, hey, genius, that's how insurance works. You friggin' fool. That's how the whole idea of insurance works. How does this genius not comprehend that? Huh? And the ignorance of what health insurance is abounds in the Republican Party. Our congressman, at least my congressman, Mike Doyle, was in a hearing about this lovely bill yesterday. And he got into an exchange with a fellow congressperson, John Shimkus, Republican from Illinois. And Shimkus says to Doyle, he's talking about the fact that Obamacare made people have to buy all kinds of insurance. And Shimkus says to Doyle, what about men having to purchase prenatal care? Is that correct? I mean, why should men have prenatal care that they've got to take? Now, this again shows an extraordinary ignorance and also an extraordinary sort of selfishness, a sense of oneself as the universe, and why, if I personally don't use something, should I in any way have to bear its cost? It's the same idiocy that makes some people say, why should I have to pay for public education through my taxes? I don't have any kids. This level of self-absorption and failure to comprehend that you're one teeny tiny part of something so much bigger astounds me, but it's an affliction growing in our population. So apparently, when Obamacare was being bandied about, this same question came up, and I'm bringing it up again because I want to read the answer to the questions from these fools in the Republican Party. At that time, the fool was a Representative Elmers of North Carolina, and he said this: do men have to buy maternity coverage? To the best of my knowledge, no man has ever delivered a baby. And I'm sure all the guys on the panel had a good chortle over that witticism. Okay, so this next thing goes out to Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, the so-called genius that faults Obamacare for essentially being insurance. And this is to all these Republican males who don't understand it either, apparently. The whole idea of how insurance works. And I came across an insurance expert's response to these people, okay? It first appeared in Consumer Reports. Her name is Nancy Metcalf. She says this. And, I'm giving it to you so that when you encounter people talking like this, you'll have maybe this ammo to just clearly explain to them. So here goes, because I think it's very well done. Health insurance, like all insurance, works by pooling risks. The healthy subsidize the sick, who could be somebody else this year and could be you next year. Those risks include any kind of health care a person might need from birth to death, prenatal care, all the way through to hospice care. No individual is likely to need all of it, but we will all need some of it eventually. So, as a middle-aged, childless man, you resent having to pay for maternity care or children's dental care? Well, okay, then shouldn't turnabout be fair play? Shouldn't pregnant women and children be able to say, okay, fine, but in that case, why should we have to pay for your Viagra or your prostate screenings or your heart attack and high blood pressure that you are many times more likely to suffer than we are? Why should we pay for that? And you see, once you start down this kind of a road, it's hard to know where to stop. If you start slicing and dicing risks, eventually you don't have a risk pool at all. And the whole idea of insurance falls apart. I'll give you just one more paragraph just because I think she's a good teacher. Before the new health law took effect, she's talking about Obamacare, insurers could and did exclude maternity coverage from individual plans. Get this. In fact, in half of states, you cannot purchase maternity coverage on the individual market at any price. Half the states. In most of the rest, you could buy a maternity rider on your policy, but in many cases, it costs more than the main policy itself. And you can't use it for at least a year after you buy it. So if you buy it and you get pregnant before that year's up, it ain't kicking in anyway. Often these kinds of separate maternity riders have a separate deductible as well. You know what that deductible is? $5,000. And why would that be so expensive? Because the only people who buy that insurance are people planning to have a baby. You see, insurers, they figured that out, and they price accordingly. So when Obamacare came in with its coverage of pregnancy, that was huge. That was huge. You know what I saw in this Republican plan? It does not cover mental health care, hardly at all. It doesn't cover a lot of woman things. It is about the ugliest, evilest piece of crap posing as legislation that I've ever seen. Let me give you one more Republican, male, Congressman. Representative Roger Marshall of the great state of Oklahoma. He, in fact, has been a physician most of his life. And he's a rookie on Capitol Hill, but he saw what a mess was going on, and he hung up his stethoscope and jumped right in and joined up the GOP Doctors Caucus. Did you hear what he said yesterday? This was a doctor. Just like Jesus said, the poor will always be with us. Somehow I had the feeling that his reading of that was not the same as Jesus' reading of that. Jesus was not saying, those dirty poor people, God almighty, there's no getting rid of them, they'll always be with us. No, that's not what he was saying. That's what this guy's saying, though, because I'll continue. Just like Jesus said, Congressman Dr. Roger Marshall says, the poor will always be with us. He's responding to a question about Medicaid. And here he goes on. There is a group of people that just don't want health care and aren't going to take care of themselves. Morally, spiritually, socially, the poor and the homeless just don't want health care. Where do these people come from? What is their life experience? They think being poor is like, what? I mean, it's like a terrible disease that renders you less than human, makes you stupid. They think poor is stupid, poor is lazy, poor is I don't want health care, poor is... What in the name of God are they... Where are they coming from? What world is this they inhabit? And they control our government. These most un-Christian Christians. Every day there's a new one. Every day there's something else. I lost my thing. Again, hard to keep up. Did I say the phone number? It is 412-200-5686. This is actually a number I should be able to get in my head, huh? But I won't. 200-5686. and Lynn at pghcitypaper.com. All right, all the stuff going on, and you think, I just can't keep up. I can't do this. Something that occurred, again, I can never remember. Was that yesterday? Was that just yesterday, or was that like 2 days ago? In any other time in our lives, it would be of such import, whatever the story is, that we would know, where were you when you first heard that General Flynn was a foreign agent? You would, these things just didn't happen. So that's not a big story. The general, the one who was up there at the Republican convention, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up, at the time was a foreign agent for Turkey. Unregistered, which ain't kosher. Donald Trump takes this guy who's making more than $500,000 for 6 months' work for Turkey, and he appoints him as the head, essentially, of national security in our country, the national security advisor to the President of the United States was a foreign agent. Unregistered. He registered the other day, retroactively. How do you think that could be like something that, we keep saying, if Hillary Clinton, if a Democrat would have, World War III, 4, 5, and 6 would have rained down. These guys, these kinds of jaw-dropping stories are coming out by the hour. And I got to tell you, that's unsustainable. I guess that's the good news. It's unsustainable. They are not going to be able to have an viable administration with this level of crap coming down the pike every other minute. Oh, I'm so glad to see it. Every once in a while they get something done, though. They did, what is this? Is this in their health care bill? Oh, it is. In that health care bill, the health care bill, it's for the financial health of insurance executives, little else. Also, the financial health of tanning bed purveyors. Under Obamacare, there was a tax, an excise on these tanning places. Because if we're drawing up a health care bill, I don't think we want to in any way, as a government, subsidize something that is known to be a cause of cancer. Okay? How they can even stay in business, I'm not sure. But it'd be like underwriting the tobacco industry. And so in Obamacare, the tanning industry took a hit. They passed it on to their idiot clients, but they took a hit. Well, you'll be happy to know that and I suppose this comes because of it. If you think of the Republicans, they have a lot of people that look like they sleep in tanning beds. And I'm thinking of, remember the orange John Boehner and the orange president? I think these are clearly people who, idiots that they are, do. Their vanity is such that they think this reddened hue makes them more attractive. And somehow they refuse to acknowledge that what it could do is make them dead. Okay. It's estimated that tanning beds account for as many as 400,000 cases of skin cancer every year. But the Republicans, you'll be glad to know, they've pulled any kind of excise tax off those guys, so they'll be able to continue to make money. And mostly their clientele are young people, especially young women. The same idiot young women who wear 5-inch heels downtown. Because for them, at their stage of development, being attractive is like the most important thing, unfortunately. And we have this sense that being attractive means dark. Isn't that interesting in a racist society? Never quite been able to figure that out. And because I'm just yapping and yapping, and I said the word cancer, I've been reminded that I want to send my best wishes out to WTAE anchor Kelly Fry, who I believe this morning on the morning show did share with the audience that she is battling a very pernicious form of breast cancer. And she did it, I saw just a little of it, with such coolness and aplomb. Really impressive. So send good thoughts her way. She's a good woman. And we've got Mary on the phone. Mary, hello.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Hey, I'm sorry, but it really, the state of affairs anymore, it's about hate, and this is about racism. I still believe that, the Republicans are determined to undo everything that President Obama did. And it's so sad because they are unprepared to put up or shut up. They're just not prepared, and it's funny when you made reference about Jesus, back in the day when I actually had the stomach to be involved in a dialogue about politics, and I would run into it was the religious right at the time, and they would go on, and I remember saying, hey, if Jesus were here today, would he be a bleeding heart Democrat, or would he be a I got mine, you got yours Republican? Which would he be? And it pretty much shut everything. It pretty much back then, back when up was up and down was down. Now everything's so crazy.
Yeah.
And I can't. You know what? I'm afraid to say. Now I'm the one that was saying, "Oh no, we need to look. Go over to Fox and look." And I'm trying to embrace the people that I know that are the 40% that approve. They're they're brainwashed, and frankly, I hate to sound like a snob, but it's the true definition of ignorance. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know if it's always the case, because there's some very educated, bright people who are in that 40%, and it's either ignorance or self-interest, or really finding their hate of people like us trumps any other concerns they might have about Donald Trump. We've got to own that our sort of more moralistic view of things has turned off a whole bunch of Americans who feel condescended to, and it hasn't helped us. We do have to engage in some soul searching, because clearly we messed up.
But Lynn, it's like, okay, so part of being a bleeding heart liberal is I try to understand the other person's point of view. I like to call it open-minded, whatever. I'm afraid that I am being desensitized. I try to watch and I try to engage, and I'm sorry, but I'm actually being desensitized, and this is where we need people like yourself that are still willing to reach out, the media, Rachel, people that, because I'm definitely being desensitized. It's
Mary,
happening.
Mary, you're not alone. We're all being desensitized. Our standards have been lowered. Our expectations for what our government is to do, for what a president should be, even for what passes for civil discourse, it is all come down, and we've all tumbled down with it. And I don't know. We're in for a long slog, and all I can say is you be true to your own good heart, but and keep soldiering on. That's all you can do. And in one-on-one, you're a very articulate person. One-on-one with people, do what you can. That's all any of us can do at this point, right? But
then what's the most frightening thing is the part about and when this first started happening, the misinformation, false truth. And to me, hold on, this is such a core of honor and decency, and to hollow that out and take away the value of truth. And to me, this is bigger than the environment, than the economy, than all the human rights. This is being civilized.
Okay, good.
I
hear you, and I thank you.
I hope you can hear my canary in the background.
I can. I was going to ask, what kind of bird is that? It sounds lovely. Thank you.
It's an old school canary, and his name is Maurice.
Maurice, thank you for the song. I heard it, and it made me happy. Thank you, Mary. Bye.
Thank you, Lynn.
All right. Bye-bye. I got some emails here I got to get to. Chuck writes, so I listened to Paul Ryan's presentation yesterday. He seems to think that the middle class are those that make upwards of $250,000 annually. He's pushing health savings accounts. But if you're saving for your child's college, and if you're saving for retirement, and if you're simply saving for your one and only annual trip to the beach maybe every year, how will you ever put enough money into an HSA account to cover, God forbid, a liver transplant, for instance? And if you do need that liver transplant, Ryan wants you to shop around first. Don't go for the physician who charges $500,000 for his services. Go with the discount doc who charges $99. Now, these people are soulless. They are soulless and incapable of any empathic response, quite clearly. Hey, Bill, go ahead, please. Bill?
Hello, Lynn.
Hi.
Yes, hello, Lynn.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, I was listening to your last caller there about, and I've also been listening to your show today about the way that you feel that Christians are being unchristian today. And I agree with you in that I can't understand why they voted for Donald Trump.
Me
but
either.
I do want to say that I see that there's a difference in the way that people think. And one of them is that I see that most Christians, or the Republican Christians, they vote on faith. They have a strong faith, and they tend to vote that way. And I see that most Democrats use what I like to refer to as critical thinking. They tend to evaluate and look at things the way that they are, and they're more honest, and they're more open. And it's the combination of those two ways of thinking that tends to get people to vote the way that they do. And also, it's hard for them to argue with a person who is completely involved with their faith.
Impossible.
They do not critically think.
That's true.
Yes,
it's impossible.
You can't argue with a person like that because it makes you look stupid.
Well, because they're not.
And
They're
that's the
arguing
reason.
from faith. This is not fact based. It's faith is not fact based. If you,
Right.
yeah.
But I want to challenge you now is what other religion do you see crazy people acting where they are all on faith without critically thinking?
Okay, let me tell you something. You will not get me in a situation where I am going to stand up there and tout religion, because I think all religion, all faiths, have their books, their holy books, their teachings, all have an element of wonderfulness in them, and all have an element that can be absolutely abused, misused, and we see that fundamentalists in all religions are the same, and they're all trouble, if you ask me. They are all incapable of critical thinking. I don't care what religion it is. My religion has them. They drive me crazy. And I don't think they get it. I don't think they understand what they don't. They miss the good stuff.
Caller. I'm a Christian, and I don't think that Christ would label himself as a right wing, what the right wing call Christian today. I don't think you're privileged because you go to church. I don't think you should look at yourself as being better because you go to church. I think church is a place where if you've done something wrong that you feel bad about yourself, that you go to try to redeem your soul to feel better. It's kind of like a hospital for sinners instead of being
it can be a
monument for people who think that they're better.
Well, I think church, synagogue, whatever, can also be a community of people. And, a lot of good happens in those buildings and because of those religions. When you look at the refugee crisis, the people that are out there helping these poor refugees often are working out of faith-based organizations. There are people who live the best parts of their faith, and then there are these people who trumpet their faith, who wear it, like a badge, which also is offensive to me, and who don't seem to understand the first thing about what their faith really teaches. So we're stuck with these.
Amen to that.
Okay. Hey, good talking to you, Bill. Bye.
You too.
Bye. Roger says, in regard to faith, I'm sorry, Lynn, but you're wrong about the most unchristian of Christians in Congress. So many evangelicals voted for this orange nightmare, maybe 90% of them. And by the way, I've read a lot of things. They're hanging with them, too. That I've come to the conclusion that any assumption that Christians are good is misguided and misleading. Well, what I'm saying is I'm using the adjective Christian in its meaning of good, in its meaning of loving. Okay? Because to me, if you really are a Christian, you are one good human being. If you follow the precepts. If you go to church and make a big to-do about, Jesus here, there, and the other thing, and you turn your back on the poor, on the least among us, and indulge in hatred of your fellow man, you're not a Christian to me. I'm not in the way I am willing to use that word. Roger writes, these evangelicals took Franklin Graham's lead and crossed the morality line by voting for Trump. As much as I avoided saying or writing Trump's name, I'm also trying to stay away from Christian events like Christmas parties and Easter get-togethers. I have no desire to be associated with such an immoral group. Oh, God, what this man is doing to us. By the way, have you heard what the Pope said today? The Pope is open to married Catholic men becoming priests. And I sigh in response because this Pope I like, and he's looking in the wrong place. I can think of nothing that would energize the church more than allowing its women to be priests. And there we are again, women at the bottom of the barrel. We got all these men now. We got a lot of sexual abuse. We got a lot of this, that, and the other thing. We got people unwilling to do this celibacy stuff anymore. So where do we go? Not to women. Stupid. Sorry. Just stupid. And bigoted. Oh, boy. All right, guys. I got so much stuff I don't know. Oh, here's something scary. It looks like the Republicans and their budget are going after. They're going to wipe out the Legal Services Corporation. That's for poor people to get legal representation in civil cases, not criminal. The legal services. We got one right down here, back sort of where our old studio was. I have friends who are lawyers there. That is a nonprofit. It was created by Congress, however, back in the days when Congress sometimes actually cared about the least of us. It gets a pittance in money, $400 million a year. I mean, that's nothing. And they want to go for it. They want to get it and eliminate it. The meanness of these people. So when they hear that quote of Jesus, the poor will always be with us, they think of it as like he's saying this curse. This curse of inferiors will always be with us. All right, so I love this story. The poor have also been they've demonized by Republicans. Their poverty is criminalized by our judicial system, which if you go over to the jail over here, I don't know, maybe half the people in there are there because they can't put up the bail to get out. They have been convicted of absolutely nothing. Got a lot of people on the line, so let's go back to the phones. Clarence, hello.
Oh.
Hi, Clarence.
I thought I was laughing at life. How you doing?
Hi, fine.
Back to the religion thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a physicist named Steven Weinberg who said, with or without religion, good people can behave well and bad people can do evil. But for good people to do evil, that takes religion. And I take religion to another, well, let me put it this way. Religion is a bad idea. There are a bunch of bad ideas. Race is a bad idea. Ethnicity is a bad idea. All these ideas that humans came up with to separate themselves from each other. And that's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
But people can't let them go.
No.
They can't let the religion go. They can't let the race go. They can't let the ethnicity go. Even nationality. You know, your nationality is where you live. It's your address. It's not who you and what you are. You know what I mean? See what I'm saying?
I'm thinking, though, that, again, I always think that the trouble is human nature and that people are overwhelmed by a vision such as yours of we are all, the same, and we do not cull people off or belong to this tribe or that nation or this. I think most people seem to have a real need to belong to a group that is like-minded in some way. Don't you think that's true? And is that
that's, like
built into us?
Like, yeah, it definitely is. That's our what they call the lizard brain or whatever. That's way back there.
Yes.
That's definitely built into us, and that's why they came up with these little things. Race is probably, well, I guess maybe nationality, but I think race is the most recent one.
Might be.
As opposed to like a nation,
Might be.
Yeah, I think it's the most recent one that separates you from the other. Of course, I say that these little terms we give ourselves is basically the butt smell of a dog. you know your pack.
Yeah.
You know your pack by their smell.
Right.
But since we have these brains, we instead of like nations are where we piss on to mark our territory. We're just animals with these. They seem like really, really advanced ideas, but they're nothing but the same things animals do.
And what's obvious too is that Bannon, his whole idea is to pull us back into those kinds of groupings, into being nationalistic and holding others who happen to be born in another nation at bay, not in any. It's so retro. It is so backward. It's mind-boggling.
It's far backwards. And that's it's interesting. I'm interested to see where it goes. Because I want because of all the protests and the way people are, like the one caller, are really starting to speak up. You know what I mean? It's gotten to a point where the liberal who would say, that's an interesting point of view. Let's talk about that. They're getting pissed off. I'm sorry, your point of view is not interesting. It's stupid. It's ignorant. And I'm tired of like coddling you. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of them starting to do that. So we're sick of this. We for the last 30 years we've been letting you go, but we're not doing it anymore. and I think bringing the nation together, that might be what Trump did, is to get people to speak up because they see, for goodness sake, when you put money before water and air. You put profits before money. Profits before air and water.
Yeah.
That I got to come up with a meme for that. That's because that's what's going on.
Yes, it's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Clarence.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Right.
He's our resident atheist. And we have, what, Steve? Dave. Dave, you there?
Good morning, Lynn.
Hi, Dave.
I have a little respiratory distress going on, so please forgive me if I don't sound very good. 50 years ago, we had a war on poverty. Today, we have a war on the impoverished. And it goes back to religion. It's the Calvinist Protestant work ethic. They truly believe that God, all he wants you to do, well, besides praise God, is work hard. Work hard, work hard, work hard. The idle hands are the hands of the devil. And if you work hard, God will bless you with health, wealth, riches,
It's
whatever.
not true. But it's not
Of course
true.
it's not at all true.
Some of the hardest working people, they're working 3-4 jobs, are poor people.
Right. But if you remember back in go to the Bible, in those days, illness was symptomatic of sin. You were sick because your body was full of sin, and so physically it didn't work right, and that's what illness was. So when Jesus went around for healing people, what did they all say behind his back? Who is this man forgiving people their sins? Healing people was forgiving them their sins. And today, now, illness is not a sign of sinful behavior or godlessness. Poverty is.
Yeah.
Because you are not doing what God wants you to do, which is to go out and work. And if you do work, God will bless you with, rewards of life. And if you don't have them, it's because God is not blessing you because you're not going out and working hard.
Wow.
And it's your fault
Yeah.
that you're impoverished.
Wow.
It is your fault.
Well, that is such a perversion of what Jesus taught that, it's, again, it just, it leaves me speechless.
I was hungry and you fed me. I had no clothes and you clothed me. I needed water and you gave me water. They don't care about that shit. They don't care about the shit of it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. They don't give a shit about the part of sell all your earthly possessions and give the money to the poor. They don't care about any of that. Jesus is now a corporate banker. He's a hedge fund manager. Wealth is a sign of God's blessing.
Yeah. Well done. Hey, well done for somebody in respiratory distress. That was well delivered, David. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, goodbye. Back to what Clarence said about these are people. We now have people in power who do value money over clean air, clean water. I read about a lawsuit today that, wow, if it gets anywhere, this is going to be a game changer. It's a groundbreaking lawsuit brought against the federal government by 21 children. 21 children. This is a new strategy. And the children it's the first of its kind. They are saying that the government has violated their constitutional right to a healthy climate. It's passed already its first hurdle in that a federal judge did allow it in November. This is pre-Trump. In November to go to trial. The federal government is fighting this hook, line, and sinker. Nothing like 21 children coming after you. If they add a few puppies to the mix and baby seals, that's good optics, as they say. Now, as I said, this potentially game-changing lawsuit was first filed when Barack Obama was the president, and guess what? His Justice Department went after it, too. They didn't want it. They did not want this going forward. Interesting. So these kids, some of them now, the oldest is 20 years old, not quite a kid. The youngest is 9. They say that the federal government has consistently engaged in activity that promotes fossil fuel production and greenhouse gas emissions, thereby worsening climate change. They argue that this violates their constitutional rights to life, liberty, and property, as well as it violates the public trust doctrine, which holds that the government is responsible for the preservation of certain vital resources, in this case, a clean air for public use. So people are watching this. It's an odd one, but it could, in fact, find legs. And wouldn't that be something? They say a child shall lead us. Let's hope that maybe the courts see that, in fact, these kids have standing. Especially when we now have a head of the Environmental Protection Agency who made quite clear yesterday, by the way, that he does not believe that carbon dioxide contributes to climate warming. Here's his quote. I think that measuring with precision human activity on the climate is something very challenging to do, and there's tremendous disagreement about the degree of impact. Let me just insert there that that is a bald-faced lie. There is no tremendous disagreement. So, says Pruitt, I would not agree that carbon dioxide is a primary contributor to the global warming that we see. Wow. And because of all those Americans who voted the way they did, this is the guy who heads our Environmental Protection Agency. So, before I was so rudely interrupted by actual callers, I was saying that over at that jail over there and in jails all over our country, there are people who are incarcerated for the crime of simply being poor. You would be blown away by the numbers and how this is possible. I remember when I loved Charles Dickens and reading his novels set in Victorian England when, man, the ugliness of their legal system and their demonization of the poor, where whole families were imprisoned in debtors' prisons. I remember thinking as a kid when I read that, oh my God, that is so cruel. That is like beyond belief. We do it. We do it. The ACLU has a big pushback on this. We're big pushback on the criminalization of poverty. And it's going on all over the place. So I take you now to Houston, and there is a federal case right now that has been levied that sues the sheriff, sues the judges that set bail, and these guys were all called into a trial the other day, Wednesday, actually. And the sheriff, Ed Gonzalez, was sworn in. He's a defendant. And here's what he ended up saying. Under oath. When most of the people in my jail are there because they can't afford to bond out, and when those people are disproportionately black and Hispanic, that is not a rational system I am part of. So the guy who's being sued in the case is on the side of the people suing him. A judge also, under oath, took the stand and ended up on the same side of the people who were suing him, too. Which bodes well for change. Because just a huge body of evidence says that this kind of insanity disrupts people's lives, ruins families, and the person is not convicted of a thing. So you end up before a judge on a misdemeanor charge, let's say, and they're told, give us $1,000 and go home, come back later for a trial, and the person doesn't have $1,000. They don't even have $50. They go to jail because they're poor and can't post bail. So these bonds and these bails have got to stop. Have to stop. They figured out in Houston that if people who had bails posted of $500 or less had simply been told, all right, you're going to have a trial date, you're free to go, but you show up here for trial or you're in big trouble, okay? If in Houston, in that county, they had that just Anything with $500 or under, you let the person go. They have figured out that they would have saved over $20 million over the last 6 years. And they think that's a very conservative estimate. If a bond is set at $500, it's not for a huge crime. Think of all the people that couldn't make it and end up instead incarcerated, having to be fed, having to be cared for, not able to go to work, their families disrupted. This is our system. It's racist. It's ugly. It's nonsensical. It's irrational. In this case, they have a guy who got arrested for sleeping under a freeway overpass. He's a homeless guy. You know what the bond was set at? $5,000. You don't sleep under overpasses if you have $5,000. Okay. And something a little lighter to end the week. Okay? This was in the Wall Street Journal today. There are people who climb mountains. Well, I suppose it's hardly breaking news. But there are people who climb mountains in the United States who are part of a group that checks off the highest point. Doesn't have to be a mountain. In every state of the Union. And they have been to the top of the highest point of every state in the Union. And it's called, I forget what, but believe it or not, there are very few people who have pulled this off. Like just over a few hundred. But the funny thing is do you know what I don't know what the highest point in Pennsylvania is. We got some pretty steep hills. But the highest point in Florida. This is the one. I ticked that one off first, I'll tell you that. The highest point in the state of Florida is called Britton Hill, and it's 345 feet above sea level. Which is sort of a leisurely little walk up a knoll, essentially. So that's the highest point in Florida, and there's a lot of states that the high point is under 1,000 feet. So you could tick off, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Delaware, Rhode Island right off the bat. It's, of course, those western states that are relatively harrowing. And then it turns out that people wanting to, do this and actually check off, run into some trouble. Because, for instance, in Illinois, the highest point in the state of Illinois is on this guy's farm. And there's a guy named Wayne Weebles. And Wayne Weebles and his wife actually bought this property. Not because, I don't even know if they knew it was the highest point in Illinois, but they bought the property because they were sick and tired of urban life and wanted to live in a rural area where they could get away from people. And so now the Weebles they say, about 1,000 people a year knocking on our door and asking if they can climb up to the highest point. And they have actually closed it down. They've said, you can only do it 5 weekends a year. So it's called Charles Mound. So whatever. I just thought that's a little piece of info that you don't necessarily know. Okay, guys. Well, listen, I just want to say I'm just thrilled that we're in this new place. I want to credit Celine, who has done yeoman's work. She's a, what was your major, English? Psychology, okay. You know, she went to work at City Paper. She wasn't looking to be a technological, radio producer. But this is a very complicated system with software on software on software on software, and I can't believe how she and Carlo got it together. But she's the one now who's in charge, and so we all owe Celine a great deal of gratitude for being such a quick study. You are more than welcome, miss. And I'm sure you'll look forward to a weekend where you don't have to do any of this crap. Okay. Hey, guys, bundle up. Oh, geez, it's going to be so damn cold, and all those buds, oh, God, they're dying. There's carnage going on out there. I can't take it. Have a good weekend.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.